Sarah Chen stared at the cracked display of her radiation detector, watching the numbers climb higher with each passing second. The abandoned spaceport's loading bay offered little protection from the toxic atmosphere of Nova 7, but it was all she had. Her environmental suit, patched together with spare parts and determination, wouldn't last another cycle. 96 hours of oxygen remaining, the suit's AI announced in its maddeningly calm voice. Sarah wanted to laugh at the precision. She'd be dead from radiation poisoning long before she ran out of air. The sound of shifting metal echoed through the vast chamber. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her hip, where her pulse pistol should have been. But she'd traded that for food 3 days ago, another decision she was beginning to regret. "Hello," she called out, immediately cursing herself for breaking the first rule of survival. Stay quiet. Stay alive. The colony's evacuation had left behind more than just abandoned buildings. The desperate and dangerous still lurked in the shadows, scraping together an existence from the ruins. A figure emerged from behind a toppled cargo container. Tall, broad-shouldered, clad in a pristine white environmental suit that probably cost more than Sarah had earned in her entire life as a maintenance technician. The corporate logo on the chest plate identified them as Nexus Corporation personnel, the same company that had abandoned this colony when their mining operation went catastrophically wrong. "You're a long way from the evacuation zone," the figure said, voice distorted by their suit's external speakers. Male, Sarah thought, though it was hard to be sure. Most survivors cleared out weeks ago. Sarah straightened, trying to project confidence despite her deteriorating situation. Had some unfinished business. Looking for something specific. The man moved closer, his suit's external lights casting harsh shadows across the debris-strewn floor. Or someone. The question hit too close to home. Sarah's sister had been working in the deep mines when the accident happened. The official report listed her as presumed deceased, but Sarah knew better. She'd seen the security footage, watched her sister being loaded onto a private corporate shuttle in the chaos of evacuation. "Just passing through," Sarah lied, her voice steady despite the growing weakness in her legs. The radiation was getting worse. She needed to move soon or risk permanent damage. The man tilted his head, studying her through his suit's darkened visor. "Your suit's failing," he observed. "Environmental seals are compromised. You've got radiation poisoning. Early stages, but it's there." Sarah's heart raced. How could he tell? Her suit's diagnostic systems had failed days ago. "I'm fine," she managed, taking a step backward. Her foot caught on a piece of debris, and she stumbled. The man moved with surprising speed, catching her arm before she could fall. "You're not fine," he said, his grip firm but gentle. "And you know it. I have a ship docked in Bay 7. Medical facilities, radiation treatment, clean air." He paused, releasing her arm. "I could use someone with maintenance experience for a job I'm working on. Someone who knows their way around Nexus Corp equipment." Sarah's mind raced. This was either salvation or a trap, and she had seconds to decide which. But with her suit failing and radiation seeping into her bones, did she really have a choice? "Why help me?" she asked, buying time to think. The man reached up and unsealed his helmet, revealing a face marked by scars and eyes that held a hint of something Sarah couldn't quite read. "Because," he said, "I'm looking for someone too. And I think we might be able to help each other." Behind them, something crashed in the darkness. The man's head snapped around, his hand moving to a weapon Sarah hadn't noticed before. "Decision time," he said quietly. "My ship or your chances here. Choose fast." Sarah looked at her radiation detector one last time. The numbers were still climbing. She took a deep breath and made her choice. Sarah followed the mysterious man through the dark corridors of the spaceport, her boots crunching on broken glass and debris. Every few steps, he would pause, checking readings on a device strapped to his wrist. The sleek design of his equipment made her even more aware of her own failing suit. "We're being followed," he said suddenly, his voice low. 3 signatures, about 50 meters back, probably scavengers. Sarah's heart jumped. She knew the type. Desperate people who would kill for a working environmental suit, even a failing one like hers. How far to your ship? 2 more sections. He pulled something from his belt and handed it to her. A small pulse pistol, newer than the one she'd traded away. You know how to use one of these. Used to work maintenance on the defense systems, she replied, checking the weapons charge. Full. Either he was very trusting or very confident she wouldn't shoot him in the back. I can handle it. They moved faster now. The man leading them through a maze of service corridors she hadn't known existed. Her radiation detector was beeping constantly. The shielding in these areas must have been compromised during the evacuation. I never got your name, Sarah said between breaths, trying to ignore the growing dizziness from the radiation. Marcus Webb, he replied, stopping at a junction to check his readings again. Former Nexus Corp security chief. Sarah nearly dropped the pistol. Security chief. Then you must know what happened in the deep mines. What they did to. A shot rang out, cutting her off. Energy bolts splashed against the wall behind them, leaving scorched marks in the metal. Marcus shoved her behind a fallen support beam, returning fire with practiced precision. Questions later, he growled, dropping one of their pursuers with a well-placed shot. Right now, we run. They sprinted through the corridors, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Sarah's vision was starting to blur, her suit's warnings becoming more insistent. The radiation levels were critical now. There, Marcus pointed ahead to a massive airlock door marked Bay 7. It looked sealed. Permanently. The override controls are fried, Sarah observed, fighting to stay focused. We'll need tow. To bypass the main circuit and reroute power through the emergency systems, Marcus finished. I know the theory, but I need someone with maintenance experience to actually do it. Sarah understood now why he'd been so quick to help her. Cover me, she said, pulling a multi-tool from her belt pouch. Her hands were shaking as she pried open the control panel, but 15 years of maintenance work had made this kind of repair almost instinctive. More shots flew past them. Marcus returned fire, his movements precise and economical. Whatever you're going to do it fast. We've got more company coming. Sarah's fingers flew over the circuits, bypassing safety protocols and rerouting power. Her sister had taught her this trick years ago, when they'd both worked maintenance. The thought gave her strength, helped her focus through the radiation sickness. Got it, she called out as the airlock door groaned open. Beyond it, she could see a sleek ship, definitely not standard Nexus Corp issue. Private military, maybe, or something even more classified. They dove through the airlock just as another wave of shots filled the corridor. Marcus slammed his fist on the emergency seal, and the heavy doors closed with a hydraulic hiss. Nice work, he said, helping her to her feet. But we're not safe yet. Ship's medical bay is this way. We need to get you treated for radiation exposure before. He stopped, staring at something over her shoulder. Sarah turned and felt her breath catch in her throat. Through the ship's viewport, she could see what their pursuers had really been running from. A massive wall of toxic storm clouds was rolling across the colony, taller than the highest buildings, destroying everything in its path. Get to the bridge, Marcus ordered, already moving. Now we find out if you're as good with ship systems as you are with airlocks. Sarah looked back at the approaching storm one last time, then ran. Whatever Marcus's true agenda was, whatever had really happened to her sister, it would have to wait. Right now, survival was all that mattered. The real questions would come later. If they survived. The ship's bridge hummed with energy as Sarah's fingers flew across the control panel. Her radiation sickness made the holographic displays blur, but she forced herself to focus. 6 years of maintaining colony ships hadn't been wasted. She recognized this vessel's systems, even if they were military grade. Storm's getting closer, Marcus called from the pilot's seat. How long until you can get the shields up? These aren't normal shields, Sarah muttered, reading the specifications. This is experimental tech. way beyond anything Nexus Corp admits to having. She glanced at him. Just what kind of security chief were you? A violent tremor shook the ship before he could answer. Through the view screen, Sarah watched as the toxic storm devoured a communications tower whole, dissolving metal and concrete like paper in acid. Less questions, more work, Marcus grunted, his hands dancing over the flight controls. That storm isn't natural. It's what Nexus was really mining for on this planet. Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. The accident in the deep mines. That's what released it. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. My sister, she knew, didn't she? That's why they took her. Maya Chen was lead researcher on Project Stormbreak, Marcus confirmed, making Sarah's blood run cold. She discovered what the mining operation was really doing to the planet's core, tried to shut it down. That's when things went wrong. Another tremor, stronger this time. Warning lights flashed across every display. Shield systems online, Sarah announced, rerouting power from non-essential systems. But they won't hold against that storm for long. We need tow. The ship's AI interrupted with an urgent alert. Warning. Multiple vessels detected in high orbit. Nexus Corporation signatures confirmed. Marcus swore under his breath. They're here to clean up their mess. Anyone who knows what really happened on Nova 7 is a liability now. He turned to Sarah. Your sister was right. The mining operation, the storms, it's all connected to something bigger, something they're willing to kill to keep secret. Sarah's mind raced. The maintenance tunnels, she said suddenly. The deep mines are connected to a network of maintenance tunnels that run under the colony. If Maya left any evidence of what she found, those tunnels will be flooded with radiation by now, Marcus warned. Even with my ship's shields, we'd only have minutes before. I don't care. Sarah cut him off. That's my sister. If there's even a chance she left something that could expose what Nexus did. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded. We'll need to modify the shield configuration. Create a bubble we can extend into the tunnels. He paused. You know this could be a one-way trip. Sarah's hands were already moving over the controls, bringing up the shield schematics. My sister risked everything to try and stop them. I won't let that be for nothing. The ship's AI spoke again. Nexus vessels entering atmosphere. Weapons systems detected and active. Plot a course to the nearest maintenance tunnel entrance, Sarah ordered, surprising herself with the authority in her voice. I'll work on the shields. If we're going to die anyway, I'd rather go down fighting than running. Marcus smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. I was hoping you'd say that. He engaged the engines, sending them diving toward the colony surface. By the way, that pistol I gave you. Keep it. Something tells me we're both going to need all the help we can get. Above them, Nexus ships broke through the cloud cover, weapons charging. Below, the toxic storm raged across the ruins of the colony, growing stronger by the second. And somewhere in the radiation-soaked tunnels beneath it all, answers waited, if they lived long enough to find them. Sarah thought of her sister and set her jaw. One way or another, the truth about Nova 7 would come out. She just hoped they'd survive long enough to tell it. The ship plunged through layers of toxic clouds, its modified shields glowing bright blue against the storm's assault. Sarah's fingers cramped as she constantly adjusted the shield frequencies, trying to maintain their protective bubble. Even with the radiation treatments Marcus had given her in the medical bay, she could feel exhaustion creeping in. 3 Nexus ships on our tail, Marcus reported, throwing their vessel into a sharp dive between 2 crumbling skyscrapers. They're not firing yet. They want us alive. That's not comforting, Sarah muttered, watching the radiation readings spike on her display. Maintenance tunnel entrance is 2 kilometers ahead, but she hesitated. These readings can't be right. The radiation levels down there are off the charts. A warning shot from one of the pursuing ships lit up their shields. Marcus rolled their ship sideways through a narrow gap between buildings, buying them seconds. Tell me something, he said, his voice surprisingly calm despite their situation. When your sister worked in the deep mines, did she ever mention Project Echo? Sarah frowned, trying to remember through her fatigue. Once. She was drunk. It was after a bad day at work. Said Echo wasn't about mining at all. Called it a door or something. I thought she was just stressed. Marcus's hands tightened on the controls. She wasn't. Echo was meant to be Nexus's greatest achievement, a way to harness energy from somewhere else. Your sister found out they were doing more than just opening a door. They were letting something through. Another blast rocked the ship. The storm was getting worse, its unnatural energy patterns matching the spikes in radiation. There, Sarah pointed to a half-collapsed building. Maintenance access point Delta 7. It leads straight to the deep mines. She checked their modified shields again. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before the radiation becomes lethal, even with protection. Marcus nodded, bringing their ship down in a controlled crash next to the access point. The landing struts groaned in protest, but held. Grab the emergency kit by the door. Your sister wasn't just leaving evidence. She was leaving a trail. She knew someone would come looking. Sarah retrieved the kit, finding it packed with advanced radiation gear and weapons. As she started to ask how he knew all this, a massive explosion shook the ground. Through the view screen, they watched as one of the pursuing Nexus ships was caught in a tendril of the toxic storm. The vessel's shields failed instantly, its hull dissolving into nothing. They're desperate, Marcus observed, checking his weapon. Whatever's down there, they're willing to die to keep it hidden. He paused, looking at Sarah intently. Last chance to back out. Sarah answered by sealing her helmet and charging her pulse pistol. Maya believed some things were worth dying for. Show me what my sister found. They exited the ship into hell. The storm raged overhead, held back only by their modified shields. Even through her suit's filters, Sarah could smell something burning, something wrong. The radiation detector on her wrist screamed warnings as they approached the maintenance tunnel entrance. Marcus worked quickly to override the security locks, while Sarah kept watch. The pursuing ships were still circling overhead, but the storm was keeping them at bay. For now. Got it, Marcus announced as the heavy doors slid open. Dark stairs led down into the earth, emergency lights casting red shadows that seemed to move on their own. Sarah, before we go down, there's something you should know about your sister. A deafening roar cut him off. The storm above them had changed, its chaotic patterns suddenly forming into something that looked almost intentional, as if it was watching them. Tell me later, Sarah said, starting down the stairs. Right now, I want to see what was worth my sister's life to protect. Behind them, their ship's AI gave one final warning. Unknown energy signatures detected below. Caution advised. Patterns match Project Echo recordings. Sarah and Marcus exchanged looks. Whatever waited in the darkness below, they were about to find out why Nexus was willing to kill to keep it secret. They descended into the depths of Novus 7, leaving the storm's unnatural wail behind them. But as they went deeper, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the storm wasn't simply following them. It was guiding them. The maintenance tunnel stretched endlessly into the darkness, their walls covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Sarah's radiation meter had stopped working completely. The display showed only static and impossible numbers. These markings, she said, running her gloved hand along one of the walls. They weren't here before. I did maintenance checks down here monthly, and they're new, Marcus confirmed, his helmet lights illuminating more of the bizarre patterns ahead. Started appearing after the accident. After Echo. A distant sound echoed through the tunnels, something between a metal screech and a human scream. Both Sarah and Marcus raised their weapons instinctively. Your sister, Marcus said quietly as they moved forward. She wasn't just researching the energy signatures, she was communicating with them. Sarah nearly stumbled. Communicating? With what? Before Marcus could answer, their suit radios crackled to life. Through the static, a familiar voice spoke. Security override Maya 7 Delta Echo. If you're hearing this, you've made it to the inner tunnels. Maya, Sarah whispered, her heart pounding. This is a recorded message. Not exactly, Marcus said. Your sister set up quantum-locked broadcasts throughout the tunnel system. They only activate under specific conditions. He paused. Like when someone with Chin DNA enters the tunnels. The recording continued, Maya's voice growing clearer. The accident wasn't an accident. Echo worked exactly as intended. Too well, in fact. We opened a door, but we couldn't control what came through. The storm above. It's just the beginning. They turned a corner and found themselves in a vast chamber. Their helmet lights barely penetrated the darkness, but Sarah could make out massive machinery, unlike anything she'd seen before. At the center stood a circular platform covered in the same shifting patterns as the walls. This is where it happened, Marcus said softly, where they opened the door. Maya's voice returned. If you're here, Sarah, and I know it's you, little sister, you need to understand. The energy signatures we detected weren't just power sources. They were trying to communicate, trying to warn us. The chamber's emergency lights suddenly flickered to life, revealing the true scale of the facility. The walls stretched up into darkness, and Sarah realized with growing horror that the patterns weren't just random designs. They were moving, flowing like liquid metal. Warn us about what? Sarah asked, but she already knew the answer. A massive tremor shook the chamber. Above them, through the layers of rock and metal, they could hear the storm's roar growing louder. We thought we were so clever, Maya's recording continued, her voice thick with regret. Opening doors to other dimensions, seeking unlimited power. But we never asked why those doors were closed in the first place. Marcus checked something on his wrist display. We've got company. Nexus forces are entering the tunnel system. Sarah, Maya's voice grew urgent. I've left you everything you need to understand. The patterns, the storm, the truth about Echo. It's all connected. But you need to make a choice now. The same choice I had to make. The circular platform in the center of the chamber hummed to life, energy crackling across its surface. The patterns on the walls began moving faster, more purposefully. What choice? Sarah demanded, though the recording couldn't hear her. The door doesn't just open one way, Maya's voice said. And sometimes the only way to close a door is from the other side. Suddenly, all their equipment went dead. Lights, radios, even their suit systems flickered and died. In the perfect darkness that followed, Sarah felt something brush against her mind, a presence vast and alien, yet somehow familiar. When their systems came back online seconds later, Sarah and Marcus found themselves surrounded, not by Nexus forces, but by shimmering figures of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting between shapes that hurt to look at. And in the center of them all stood a figure in a torn Nexus Corp environmental suit, its helmet cracked but still sealed. Hello, little sister, said Maya Chen. We need to talk about closing some doors. Sarah stared at her sister through tears. She couldn't wipe away inside her helmet. Maya looked both exactly the same and completely different. Her suit was damaged, but what showed through the cracks wasn't flesh, but shifting patterns of light similar to the entities surrounding them. What happened to you? Sarah whispered. I evolved. Maya replied, her voice echoing strangely. Or maybe I just woke up. The beings we contacted through Echo, they showed me things, Sarah. Truths about our universe, about what's really out there. Marcus stepped forward, his weapon lowered but ready. The storm above is getting stronger. Your message said something about closing doors. Maya's laugh had an unsettling harmonic quality to it. Always focused on the mission, aren't you, Marcus? Yes, the storm is getting stronger, because they're coming through. All of them. And Nexus has no idea what they've unleashed. The chamber shuddered as another explosion echoed from above. The energy beings around them flickered like disturbed flames. Nexus security teams, Marcus reported, checking a device that still worked. They're fighting their way down, and they're bringing heavy weapons. They can't stop what's coming, Maya said. She raised her hand, and the patterns on the walls flowed toward her like liquid starlight. The door they opened. It leads to dimensions beyond their understanding. The beings there have been waiting, watching our universe. Some want to help us. Others, she shuddered, others want to devour everything we are. Sarah's mind raced, trying to process it all. The storm, it's them. These beings. The first wave, Maya confirmed. But more are coming. That's why I stayed behind. Why I let them change me. Someone had to understand them to stop them. She turned to Sarah, her cracked helmet showing swirling lights where her face should be. But I can't do it alone. Gunfire erupted from one of the tunnels. Nexus forces had arrived, their weapons blazing against the energy beings. But their shots passed right through, the entities unbothered by physical attacks. The only way to close the door, Maya continued, her voice rising over the chaos, is to synchronize it with their frequency. But it takes someone from both sides. Someone changed, like me. She reached out toward Sarah. And someone still human, like you. You want me to. Sarah's voice trailed off as understanding dawned. To join me, Maya finished. Not changed like I am, but connected. A bridge between our world and theirs. Together, we can seal the breach. But Sarah, she hesitated. It's dangerous. And if we fail? Another explosion rocked the chamber. The Nexus forces were getting closer, their weapons more desperate. If we fail, everything dies, Marcus said grimly. Not just this colony. Everything. Everywhere. Sarah looked at her sister, this being of light and energy that used to be her sister, and made her decision. She reached for Maya's outstretched hand. Wait, Marcus grabbed her arm. The radiation in here, even with our suits, a connection like that could kill you. It will kill her, Maya said softly. But she'll be reborn. Like I was. The question is, into what? Sarah turned to Marcus, seeing genuine concern in his eyes through his visor. You knew, didn't you? When you found me in the spaceport, you knew it would come to this. He nodded slowly. Maya contacted me months ago. Said she needed help getting her sister to this point. To this choice. He released her arm. But it had to be your choice. The chamber walls were pulsing now, the patterns moving faster, more urgently. Above, the storm's roar had become deafening. Time was running out. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped toward her sister. Together then. Maya's form flickered with what might have been a smile. Together. Like when we were kids, solving problems as a team. She reached out again, ready to save the universe. Little sister. Behind them, Nexus forces breached the chamber, their weapons charged. The energy beings swirled protectively around the sisters, and somewhere above, reality itself was tearing apart. Sarah reached for her sister's hand, ready to face whatever came next. After all, some things were worth dying for. The moment Sarah's hand touched Maya's, the universe exploded inside her mind. Colors she had never seen before flooded her vision, and she understood why her sister's messages had been so cryptic. How could you describe something that existed beyond human comprehension? Hold on to me, Maya's voice echoed in her thoughts. The transition is the hardest part. Sarah felt herself changing, her consciousness expanding. Through their connection, she could see what Maya saw. The vast network of reality, the thin membranes separating dimensions, and the tiers that Nexus had created with Project Echo. Stop them. A Nexus commander's voice seemed to come from far away. Whatever they're doing, stop them. Marcus moved to intercept the security forces, his weapon firing with precision. You've got bigger problems, he shouted as the energy beings around them began to pulse with growing power. Look up. Through the layers of rock and metal above them, Sarah could now see, really see, the storm. It wasn't just energy or alien beings. It was a wound in reality itself, bleeding chaos into their universe, and through that wound, something massive was trying to force its way through. "I see it," Sarah gasped, her body burning with transformation. "Maya, I see everything." "Then you know what we have to do." Her sister's thoughts merged with hers. "The door works both ways. We can use their own power to seal it." The chamber's machinery hummed to life, responding to their combined presence. The patterns on the walls were no longer just patterns. Sarah could read them now, understanding the mathematical language of reality itself. "It's killing her," Marcus shouted, still holding off the Nexus forces. "Her suit's readings are off the charts." "She's not dying." Maya's voice echoed through the chamber. "She's becoming." Sarah felt her physical form beginning to fade, becoming something else, something between states, but she maintained her grip on humanity, remembering Maya's words about needing both sides. Through their connection, they began to weave energy into complex patterns, creating a new kind of seal. The Nexus forces fell back as reality rippled around the sisters. The energy beings swirled faster, adding their power to the seal. Above them, the storm screamed in frequencies that shattered glass and bent metal. "They're closing the breach," Marcus realized. "All of them. The entities are helping them." Sarah could feel the massive presence above recoiling as the seal began to take hold. But it wasn't retreating. It was gathering itself for one final push. "Sarah," Maya's thoughts touched hers. "We need more power. We need to give everything." "I know," Sarah replied silently. She could feel her human consciousness slipping away, replaced by something vast and strange and beautiful. "Together. Like we promised. Until the end." The chamber filled with blinding light as the sisters poured their combined essence into the seal. Sarah felt herself coming apart at the atomic level, her energy merging with Maya's, with the entities, with the universe itself. Through dissolving eyes, she saw Marcus backing away from the intensity of their transformation. The Nexus forces fled in terror as reality itself bent around the chamber. The storm above howled in frequencies that could shatter worlds. "It's working." Maya's voice was everywhere and nowhere. "Sarah, you're doing it. You're—" The universe held its breath. And then, everything went white. In the silence that followed, a single thought echoed through dimensions. "See you on the other side, little sister." The light faded slowly, revealing a chamber forever changed. Where two sisters had stood, a new kind of being remained, not quite human, not quite energy, but something in between. A guardian at the doors of reality. Marcus approached cautiously, his suit's sensors trying to make sense of what they detected. "Sarah," he asked softly. "Maya." The being turned, its form shifting like starlight on water. When it spoke, two voices answered as one. "We are here. We are watching. And we are ready." Above them, the storm had gone quiet. The breach was sealed, but in the depths of Novus 7, something new had been born. The real question was, what would it become? 1 year after the Novus 7 incident, Marcus Webb stood before the Interplanetary Council, his testimony coming to an end. The chamber was silent as the representatives from 100 worlds processed what they had heard. "And you maintain," the council head said slowly, "that these beings, these merged entities that were once the Chen sisters, are still protecting our reality." Marcus smiled slightly. "I don't maintain anything. I just report what I saw. What happened in those tunnels changed everything we thought we knew about the universe." Nexus Corporation tried to open a door. Instead, they created something new, something necessary. The chamber's displays showed footage from across the galaxy, strange lights dancing between stars, unexplained phenomena that saved colonies from disaster, mysterious patterns appearing in space that somehow kept ships from wandering into dangerous regions. "The sisters are out there," Marcus continued. "Not as humans anymore, but not as aliens either. There's something in between. Guardians, maybe, or bridges. And the other entities. Another council member asked. The ones that helped them. Still around, still watching. But now they have a way to communicate with us that doesn't tear reality apart. He gestured to the patterns visible in some of the footage. They're teaching us, helping us understand our place in a much bigger universe. The council chamber's lights dimmed suddenly. On every screen, new patterns appeared, beautiful, complex, and somehow familiar. Several council members gasped. Right on time, Marcus said softly. A presence filled the room, not physical, but undeniable. When it spoke, the voice was both Sarah and Maya, and something more. We see you, all of you, your fears, your hopes, your potential. The patterns shifted, showing glimpses of other dimensions, other possibilities. The council members watched in awe as reality itself seemed to fold and unfold before them. What Nexus sought to control, we now protect. What they tried to exploit, we help nurture. The doors between worlds are not meant to be forced open. They're meant to be understood. Marcus stepped forward. They've been showing us a better way. Not conquest or control, but communication, connection. There are wonders out there beyond our imagination, but we have to be ready for them. The presence seemed to focus on him. You've done well, Marcus. Your part in this story is complete. He nodded, understanding. And what about you? Both of you. Are you happy? The pattern swirled, and for a moment, he could almost see them, Sarah and Maya, transformed but still somehow themselves. Their consciousness expanded beyond human limits, but their humanity not entirely lost. We are what we need to be, they answered. We are together. We are watching. And we are making sure humanity has the time it needs to grow, to learn, to become ready for what waits beyond the doors. The patterns began to fade, but their voice remained. Tell them, Marcus. Tell them that the universe is larger than they imagine, more wonderful, more terrifying. But tell them not to be afraid. Tell them their sisters are watching over them. As the presence withdrew, the council chambers returned to normal. But nothing would ever really be normal again. Humanity had taken its first real steps into a larger universe, guided by two sisters who had sacrificed everything to protect it. Marcus gathered his papers, knowing his work here was done. As he walked out of the chambers, he looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Sarah and Maya Chen were watching, protecting, waiting. Not quite human anymore, but not quite gone either. He smiled, remembering Sarah's last human words. Some things are worth dying for. But she hadn't died. She had transformed. Both sisters had. And in doing so, they had given humanity something precious. Time. Time to learn, to grow, to prepare for what waited beyond the doors of reality. The universe was vast and strange and wonderful. And thanks to two sisters from a mining colony, humanity would have the chance to explore it properly when they were ready. After all, that's what big sisters were for.